All right, we are on page 336, Chapter 9, Lesson 1, Populations. Name, class, date, Science FNT, Chapter 9, Lesson 1, page 336, Populations. Write all of it, because I don't want to be at the end of the week and you're asking me, what page are we on, Mr. Rob? It's at the top of your notes. What's the name of the chapter? Populations, you wrote it down. What chapter, what lesson, it's all here. Main idea, essential question, copy it. Populations depend on resources, predator-prey relationships, diseases, and competition. Write it down. First vocabulary term, competition, page 337. There it is over here. There's the word. Competition is the struggle among living things to use the same resources in an ecosystem. Competition, struggle to use same resources. Disease, page 339. Flip to it. There it is. Disease. A disease is a condition that prevents an organism from functioning properly. Disease. Condition prevents functioning properly. Endangered species, page 340. Flip to it. Endangered species. When a species is close to becoming extinct, it is called, they made a typo and we just caught it. It is called an endangered species. Endangered species, close to extinct. Extinction, page 340. Extinction is the complete disappearance of a species. Extinction, complete disappearance. Invasive species, page 339. Invasive species are plants or animals that are not native to an ecosystem. Invasive species, not native. Limiting factor. A limiting factor is something that restricts the growth and distribution of a population. Limiting factor restricts growth and distribution of population. Predation, page 338. Predation occurs when one organism, the predator, catches and feeds on another organism, the prey. Predation, predator catches and feeds on prey. Threatened species, page 340. When a species is close to becoming endangered, it is called a threatened species. Threatened species, close to endangered. So, normal is normal. Threatened means they're almost endangered. Endangered means they're almost extinct. Extinct means they're gone completely. They have completely disappeared. All right, first section. Limited resources. Red pen. You should have one because I've given you like 4 or 5 or 6 of them by now. In the photo below of the African savanna, look at the photo. The watering hole is drying up. See how it's drying up? There's less water than usual. How many animals can still drink from it? Perhaps 20? Only a limited number of animals can live off this water. Example given, water drying up. If the population in the area exceeds that number, many animals won't get enough to drink. Population can exceed. Resources available. The population can exceed the resources available. To survive, they must find water elsewhere. The water available to animals at this watering hole is a limiting factor in the ecosystem. So a population can exceed the resources available, and if so, then we have a limiting factor with a little apostrophe before and after it. A limiting factor is something that restricts the growth and distribution of a population. Limiting factors include resources, such as food, water, and space. Not outer space, but space to live, space to nest, space to grow. Example given, food, water, space. Without limiting factors, populations would increase. Oops, I skipped a sentence. They can also involve competition, predation, disease, invasive species, and human activities. We list humans because that's a very important one. Think about chickens or cows or pigs. Think about the animals that we grow on ranches, or think about the trees and the plants that we grow on farms. We very much limit how many of these things can grow. We limit their population on purpose. Without limiting factors, populations would increase and keep on increasing. For example, some bacteria can double in number every 6 hours. Bacteria can double, that's a letter E with a swirl around it for every. Bacteria can double every 6 hours, HRS period. If all offspring survived, a single bacterium could produce a colony of 250 million in about a week. So 1 arrow, 1/4 billion in 1 week. That is a lot. Looking at the picture, in any population, growth is limited by factors such as competition, predation, water, and disease. I think almost all of these are in this picture. Competition, they're competing for water and space. Predation, lions are predators, and sometimes they will prey on the elephants. Water, obviously water is the limiting factor here. It is the limited resource, so it's the limiting factor. And let's see, disease. Well, that lion looks awfully skinny. That one looks even skinnier. You can see their ribs almost. Maybe they're diseased, and maybe they're diseased because they don't have enough water and because they're getting attacked and run off by the elephants. So that's the limiting factor. All right, turn your page on your notes. Next section. Competition. Competition. Competition is an important limiting factor. It's a limiting factor. Competition is the struggle among living things to use the same resources in an ecosystem, using same resources. Some competition occurs between individuals of the same species. Individuals of same species. For example, birds of the same species might compete for the best places to nest. Plants might compete for growing space in soil. Two lions might compete for the same prey. Example given, nesting, zoop, growing space, zoop, prey. The birds nesting, the plants growing, and the lions finding prey. There is also competition between different species. Owls and hawks hunt the same type of food. Their competition is limited because they hunt at different times of the day. People compete with plants and animals for resources as well. To meet their own needs, such as for new roads and homes, people often destroy habitats for plants and animals. So, different species, example given, prey and space. Prey like they're competing for the same prey, or space like we compete for space to grow and live and have our homes. Ecosystem balance. Ecosystem balance in red. Limiting factors determine the number of organisms an ecosystem can support. Limiting factors determine number of organisms. This number is called the carrying capacity of the ecosystem. Quotes, carrying capacity, end quotes. That's the number of organisms that can live there, depending on the limiting factors. Okay, when the carrying capacity is reached for all of its species, the ecosystem is said to be in balance. Oh, that's why we're talking about ecosystem balance, because they have reached their carrying capacity. Populations can grow above or below the carrying capacity, but only for a short time. Above/below, but only for a short time. When there are more organisms in an area than the available resources it can support, they're missing the word it. When there are more organisms in an area than the available resources can support, only some organisms will survive. Others will have to leave the area to find resources, or they will die. So arrow from above, leave or die. If the carrying capacity, if the actual number of organisms is above that carrying capacity, they're going to have to leave to go find more resources, or they're going to die because they won't have water, they won't have food, and they won't have space to live. Okay. Pictures. Rainforest. Rainforests receive 400 to 1,000 centimeters of rain each year. Plenty of water, combined with warm temperatures, result in abundant plant and animal populations. Desert. Water is scarce in the desert, where less than 25 centimeters of rain falls each year. The low availability of this resource results in small plant and animal populations. So, rainforest versus desert. That's a perfect example of how carrying capacity can differ. The water is a limiting factor. When there's a lot of water, it's basically a rainforest. When there's very little water, it's like a desert. Okay, cause and effect. How does competition limit populations? Competition limits populations by what? By its limiting factors. For example, individuals of the same species or different species might use the same resources. That means they are competing for the same resources. So it limits populations by limiting the space they have to nest or grow, limiting the prey or food they can find, limiting the water that's available. There you go. That's how competition limits population. It prevents them from continuing to expand and grow. And then that gets down into here, right? Those limiting factors limit the number of organisms that can exist. If they don't have food, they don't have water, and they don't have a place to live, they're either going to have to leave and go somewhere else, or they're going to die. Okay, that's day one. Notes are done for day one. Good job persevering with the growth mindset, and roar, Wildcats.